get us started. And again, thank you for being here. Um, Before we get started with our webinar, I wanted to just say a few things. And thank you again for joining us. I am Barbara Brandt, and I'm the Systems Change Coordinator here at the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities. And so we have a few housekeeping items that I think will make it more enjoyable and smoother for all of us, and some accommodations as well. The session's being recorded, and we're assuming that's okay with you. If it's not, please let us know. And the materials will be available in the upcoming weeks. It takes a little while to make sure we've got all the interpretation down and get it ready to be sent out so that you'll have access to the slides and the full presentation. If you'd like to have a question, and there will be some throughout this, our wonderful speaker, Anya, likes a very interactive webinar, and we know that that makes it all that much better. And so you can type your question into the chat box or use the raise hand button if you'd like to speak. All through this, this can happen. If you have any technical issues, just send a message in the chat. And you'll see it. You'll see a person to pick, and that's the said Sonoran Center, and they'll be monitoring the chat. They'll be able to help in any way possible with any technical issues. We know a lot of you go from platform to platform. If you're with a state, you're going to get Google. If you're with some other places, you're going to get the different platforms through Outlook. And so, because you may be bouncing around, we're here to help you. We're very glad to say that we've got live captioning available. And we want to thank our captioner today, and that is Maggie Messer. Thank you very much, Maggie. And to access those live captions, she set it up for us to click on the live transcript button, and it's the bottom of your screen, and you'll be able to see if that there is live captioning available to you. Just click on it, and away you go. And a few other notations before we get started. And we really want to read the university's land acknowledgement as we start today's sessions. I don't have it memorized. I wish I did, and I'm working on it, but please allow me to present it. We respectfully acknowledge the University of Arizona is on the land and territories of indigenous peoples. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, with Tucson being the home to the O'odham and the Yaqui. Committed to diversity and inclusion, the university strives to build sustainable relationships with sovereign Native nations and indigenous communities through education, offerings, partnerships, and community service. So those are the pieces that we wanted to share with you before we get started. And so let's do. First, I'd like to introduce you my co-monitor and excellent for today's session, Gabe Martinez. And as a short bio, he's waving. He is the co-coordinator here and is a peer mentor at our UCED. He is a 2016 graduate of the Sonoran UCED's Project Surge. And if you're not familiar with it, he can describe a little, but it is a way for people with disabilities to have a variety of jobs, to really get in there. It's for youth, get a feeling of what it's like to be part and have high expectations at work. And here we are. He's got great insights and ideas on assisting future students to be leaders. Previously, and you can see his trajectory on those high expectations of becoming a leader. He was a grocery clerk at a local grocery store. His favorite thing about his job, and it will come through, it shines, is that he likes to help others achieve their dream of becoming an educator and having a job. He's a regular speaker and trainer for webinars, course guest lectures, and for high school students to be in the classroom and learn about their own self-determination. As a role model, he functions as a peer mentor in several places and not just here at the university. And I'd like to talk about one recent thing, and which is pretty exciting, and we'll ask him more about it. He was recently appointed by President Biden to the National President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities. Not many people are appointed. They come from all over the country, and he is one of, I think, 14 people that are not government federal employees that has been appointed to it, and one of few self-advocates. So that provides advance assistance to the President of the U.S. and Secretary of Health and Human Services on a broad range of topics that impact the lives of people with disabilities. So you can see the depth and the growth and how Gabe can help others realize that you can achieve your dreams. And so, Gabe, I'd like to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about our great speaker today.
Right. We have Anya here with us. She's a great speaker. She will share us her side of the things that she did, and she will let us know that what things that we're going to do. Go ahead, Anya.
Thank you so much, Gabe. Now I'm going to share my screen before I get started. Today I'm going to talk about young adult perspectives on a Native youth transition. I'm Anya Carrillo again. I am a peer-based service professional at Diverse Ability Incorporated, but I also am a youth engagement coordinator for the Finds Their Way program through the Sonoran USAID as well. I am 27 years old, and I am from the Pueblo of Laguna tribe, Hopi, Seneca, and Lakota tribe as well. So one of the biggest nicknames I got as a kid was the Gathering of Nations whenever I danced at powwows, something that we loved to do when we were growing up, and still keep close to us as we're raising our own babies now. So that's just a little bit about me. Like it was mentioned by Barbara, I am talking about youth voice in this presentation, young adult voice. And a part of that young adult voice and that young adult perspective is really reaching out and telling people you have the voice to speak and the option to have your voice heard. And so my presentations are always interactive. That doesn't mean you have to interact if you don't want to, but I am giving you the choice and the ability to interact with some of the questions that I provide inside my presentation.
Now, may I interrupt to say something I thought was valuable? And I know it's part of your very important culture, which you've woven through so much about how it shaped your life experience. And the quote which you lives by is a river cuts through a rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence. I really.
And I live by that because of all the trials and tribulations I have been through in my life, because I had to be completely persistent in what I needed and what I wanted in my life. So definitely, like, that quote hits me hard because I'm like, okay, well, I had to continue to be persistent, and my ability to be strong and talk about youth perspective and voice is something that I get from that quote, because in order for me to be strong enough, I had to have that constant persistence. So during this, I would love to hear any feedback you have on any questions, any different questions you may have. And if you want to, you could raise your hand. And if one of the moderators could tell me who has their hand up, that would help me out a lot as well. So, importance of youth voice. So in a setting, in what settings do youth voice or youth get to share how they feel? So a lot of the questions that I ask have to do for professionals and students themselves, but I've always been curious, how do you feel a youth should share how they feel. When should they tell you about what it is that they're feeling and how they like any type of things that they're going through? If they don't like it, when do you feel like that is important? And if anyone has any comments to that.
Again, if you're not familiar with the platform, on the bottom, more towards the right, there's a reaction. And so you just don't have to do a smiley face or anything like that. But that smiley face under reaction, if you pop it up, the bottom part has a raised hand.
You probably came to this webinar not expecting to speak much as well.
I don't know if it's okay if I just answer without raising my hand. This is Richard. I work with the Centers for Rehabilitation. I think that youth voice is incredibly important. As a former special ed teacher, I think the IEP meeting is a really excellent time for students to share their voice, right? Because it's about them and for them. And I think been a part of some IEP meetings where students were being talked about and were not included. And I think especially in that process, it's incredibly important for those students to be able to share their perspective.
Love the answer, Richard. Thank you so much. Yes, IEP is a great way for youth to share their voice. Anyone else? Where's another place that they can share their voice?
Saw Larry Honeycutt's hand up, but I'm not sure. Is that true, Larry?
Good afternoon. My name is Benita McCurry, and I'm an advocate for the Native American Disability Law Center. I think one of the things that we try to promote is self-advocacy, and at home is where it would begin. You know, when we try to encourage kids, you know, ask for what you want. If you're not comfortable with doing something, you know, stand up and say, hey, you know, I don't want to do that. But not in an honorary way, but, you know, like requesting for extra homework at school, requesting to, you know, say no to their peers if they don't want to do anything that they're doing. So we do promote self-advocacy with, you know, within the law center.
Thank you so much, Benita. Definitely. So in this question, it's kind of like tricky to ask these questions because all the responses that I get are very, very important to me. And they're so true. IEP settings, home settings. But one of the things that I like to point out is that everywhere and anywhere a youth is, their voice should be heard. They shouldn't ever feel like they can't speak up about anything. So those two are really important, especially because advocacy is one of the biggest skills that youth don't really understand the word advocacy, but they know that they have to speak up for themselves in some sort of ways. So some of the other questions that I like to ask are you supporting youth in their endeavors or their dreams? So in your IEP meetings, are you supporting the youth's dreams or whatever it is that they want to do in the school processes? I know that it's hard to get, we have a lot of IEPs that we have to fill out, and the school system is overloaded, but to have the youth involved in their IEP and to listen to what it is that they want and what they need is so important. And why is it so important to let those who are young lead in the discussion and decision making? So we talk about IEPs and we talk about home life, and it's really hard to let a youth lead when we think we know what's best for that child as well. Because I know for a fact that when I was growing up, a lot of people thought they knew what was best for me, but I was not included in the discussions. I was not included in my IEP meetings, and I was definitely not included in my home discussions as well. So why is it so important to let those who are young lead the discussions and decision making in those IEPs and at home? Let's just use those as two examples.
This is Benita McCary again. I'm sorry, my video isn't working correctly, so you'll just hear my voice. One of the things that the Law Center also encourages during IEP meetings is when they turn 14, during their transition meetings. This would be a grand time for a student to indicate, I do not want a certain person in my IEP meeting. I want to have my mom at my IEP meeting or another family member to decide, what career path do I want to make? If I want to become a welder, for example, how can I get from point A to B, and who can be at the table to assist me to get to become a welder once I complete my high school and pursue a career goal. And that's something that we're currently encouraging, going out to high schools, letting kids know that they do have a right to voice their opinion when they have these IEP meetings, especially during transition planning.
14 is a great age to start that, and also to have them lead those discussions and have those support people to support them during those discussions as well. Because we all know we don't make decisions solely on our own all the time. I mean, we're buying a new house right now. I'm pregnant and we have 3 kids already, and we're buying a new house. And so we only have a 3-bedroom house. So we need to upgrade, but I can't make that decision on my own. I have to have family support in that decision. I have to have my husband's support in that decision. I have to have the bank's help because we need a loan on the new home. And so thinking about those things and early on in those earlier years, 14, talking about how we can include those support people to help in the decision-making process too. And also leading that discussion of saying, I need support and I need help. And these are the people that I want to help. And these are the people that I would love to have involved. And also just telling them what they need help with, because I know a lot of the times it's scary as a young person to say, I need help with this, but I don't know how to start. Can you help me? And that's hard. So definitely such a great point you made. And I love it. That leads into the next question that I do have is like, what age do they need to start leading the discussions? What ages do you believe should start leading discussions to make their own decisions? So this one's a little tricky because I have a way different answer than most people, but does anyone else think that 14 or high school age students should have, is that when it should start? When should the discussion leading start?
I have an opinion, and it may not be the same as others. I think at age 3 or 5. And the reason I believe that, having experienced it, is that you start building high expectations for both the family and the young person, because we've not yet figured out how to help professionals not to quash dreams. And that often when somebody's very young, they're helping families through a difficult time, and they're metering expectations. They're getting better about not saying never, 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 but they're not asking the questions that they would for for mothers that have loved ones without disabilities. That, that anticipatory guidance, like, oh, your child's 4 or 3. When are you going to get some training wheels on that bike? Or, oh, you're going to be riding a bicycle. You're going to need knee pads and a helmet and oh, because your child has extra needs, what other equipment or supports might you need? But there tends to be a crushing of people's dreams. But if you start thinking about what is possible and being realistic, but also striving for dreams, and that teachers see the possibilities, not talk, you've got to talk about the realisms, but the possibilities. So if somebody wants to be an astronaut, instead of the eye rolling, what is that about? Is it that wearing a uniform for status? Is it somebody loves to see the rocket ship and they love to see the cheering and being a part of something? Well, what gets you closer to the dream? So I think it kind of begins at birth. And then for the person with disability, it comes soon after.
You are exactly how I think, Barbara. I have led multiple discussions on this, and 14 is a good age for transition-based services. And I think that's what we always think of, is that during that transition, we're 14 and up, we're in those teenage years. But why don't we start our youth at the youngest age that they can properly communicate their needs? Properly communicating their needs is when they're a baby and they're screaming for a bottle of milk, or asking for just attention and love and care. And why don't we start at the beginning when they're asking us to be a support person to them? And by the age of, I mean, my daughter, who is 2 right now, I'm teaching her these skills already, telling her, if she needs something, she needs to ask for it. And how does she ask for it? In her way of speaking. It doesn't matter if she can speak in full sentences or if she needs to show me what it is that she needs. I always believe that leading a discussion, whether it's about your own health, about your own care, about what you want to wear on a daily basis, or what you want to drink, or what you want to eat. Of course, we're going to guide, whether that's our job as either a support person or as a parent. But have them start that leading and advocating for themselves in the earliest parts of their lives. And I think that's something that we don't really think of when it comes to a professional mindset, is these discussions need to start when they're being born. I have plans for each of my kids. And I think it's helped me because I've been in this setting where I've seen how things are done, that I needed to start impacting or making my kids' voice empowered, feel like they are empowered to say whatever it is that they want to say, or do the things that they need to do in order to succeed for themselves. And so that's why it's so important for Youth Voice to be such a stronghold. And first thing out of the womb, notice of getting them into knowing that their voice is important. So talking about speaking up and importance of youth voice, what if I told you that a moment a child starts to communicate is when we should start listening? So like I said, when we're parents, and even as I've seen some social workers, when a baby is born, they lean into that cue of communication that they're already presenting. So when my kids were first born, the first thing they did was cry. And so the first thing I wanted to do was comfort or heal or empower what it is that they needed. I got told I could not breastfeed right after I had my baby. And I was like, no, they're hungry. And I can tell that they're hungry. They need to eat. So I was their advocate, but I was also empowering that their voice is important, even at that young stage. So communication is all types. I feel like a lot of people miss the mark on communication as well. We talk about voice, and a voice doesn't have to be verbal. It doesn't have to be something that we can hear come out of a mouth. It doesn't have to be the way that that they speak in a tone. It could be the way that they're presenting body language. It could be a cry or a way of just getting across what it is that they need in any type of manner. We have all different types of speech and communications. And I think it's really awesome to also acknowledge that it doesn't matter what type of communication they're using. It is important to listen or see or feel how they're feeling. As adults, we believe that youth are not old enough to make big decisions, that we have learned more and that we have done more to get us where we are in life. So we know better. That's a very strong misconduct that I believe is, I know better than you, so I'm doing this because I know better than you. Whereas we should use I've gone through a whole lot of stuff in my life. I have learned so much growing up in the way that I have grown up. And I believe that I can help support you in any way, in any decision that you make. But we also provide that correct guidance, and we don't need to let them advocate for themselves. So we can guide them in any type of way that, or anything that they want to do, but we just help guide them in that. We support them. We give them that shoulder, that ear. We tell them when something might be a little bit harder, but how do we guide you to get to the point where you want to be and where you want to see your life at? So we talk about transition for high school aged youth, and that's a big thing that we work on nowadays. I work for a nonprofit that works with youth and young adults who have disabilities. And so we work with mostly high school aged youth into college aged youth. So we talk about the IEP meetings. We talk about the advocacy in IEP meetings, the 504 plans, and creating around a student their needs and wants. So what is it that you need for your youth to succeed, but what is it that the youth needs for themselves to succeed? Who are we in the student's life? So this is another thing I keep talking about: supports and guidance, and the people in our lives that are our parents or teachers or staff or anyone of that sort. Why do we talk about our independence when we really need to start talking about interdependence? Interdependence is that support system built around the youth, about the people who help guide those youth. I always, whenever I think about interdependence, I think of a student or a youth or a person in the middle of a circle and a bunch of adults or people, doesn't matter if they're adults or not, could be friends, family, surrounding that one person and just guiding them along a path. That's the exact image I get every time I think about interdependence. And the reason why I think of that is because I think of all the ways that we can support and love and cherish and guide that youth, but the youth is at the center of that circle, making the decisions that they need to be able to be successful. So now I'm going to go off a little bit and talk about transition for high school aged youth and how I use my story and how it helps me understand the need for more inclusive transition plans for youth, as well as speaking to adults who may not know how to engage or help youth. I've had a really rough young adult life and teenage years. I was 15 years old when I got diagnosed with my first diagnosis of a mental health disability. And I thought for sure my life was going to end. I didn't know what having a disability meant. I didn't know what having a mental health disability looked like. And I definitely did not know what was going on, that I needed the help, the correct help, the correct guidance, the correct supports that I needed. So I was at 15 years old. Let's just start over. Okay. So I am a survivor of Munchausen's by proxy. My mother, she has Munchausen by proxy, and I was diagnosed over 35 times with over 40 misdiagnoses of mental illness. I was abused from the age of 12 until I was 18 years old, and I finally escaped the abuse and realized what was going on at the age of 19. So I was when I was 15 years old, I was finally speaking up about some of the physical abuse that was going on at my home. And I was telling everyone, like, I need help. I want to get out of the situation. I have a little sister and I don't want her to be hurt the way I've been hurt. Can you guys please help me? And I wasn't being listened to. They were telling me, like, no, you're not being hurt. You're fine. Like, you don't have a ton of bruises on your body. You're okay. And so my mom came to realize that I was telling people that I was being abused at home. And so instead of, acknowledging that her abuse was really impacting us, she ended up putting me on a ton of medications and getting me diagnosed with something called schizoaffective disorder, to have medications prescribed to me that make your whole body feel like a zombie. I could not speak. I felt tired all the time. I had no energy. I was going from being a straight A student to now having B's and C's on my report cards. And so once she got that diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder and I started my medications, the school decided that it would be best for me to be put on an IEP plan and also be transferred to the special education program. I was a straight A student. I was in all honors and AP classes. I worked my butt off to get to where I was. I was very smart. I tried my hardest. I was first chair violinist. I had great aspirations for after school and what I wanted to do when I graduated high school. But all of those seemed to end once I got my diagnosis and was told that I had a disability and that I was going to be put in special education. With that being said, I went through not knowing how to support myself or my sister or really understand how I could get out of this cycle that I was in. And so in 2017 or 2014, I was given an opportunity. And my mom loved to take us places over the summer. So I don't know if any of you guys heard of the Ranch before. It's like a program for people who are I forgot the word that they use, but troubled youth. There we go, troubled youth programs. So we were always in and out of troubled youth programs, out of different types of mental hospitals and different treatment centers and different other areas of life where we were never really home that much. Like during the summers, we weren't allowed to really come home during the summers. So when I brought up the opportunity to attend Arizona Youth Leadership Forum, I was able to go ahead and I believe that might be it, Rusty Morningstar. I forgot what it's called, but it was
that was
scary.
me. And well, I'll withhold opinions.
It was very hard. It was like being put like in a program that you didn't know you belonged in, and you were just thrown into something that was very scary. But I was asked by my teacher to attend Arizona Youth Leadership Forum, which is for youth and young adults who have disabilities. And at first I was like, I don't have a disability. Like, you guys need to stop saying I have a disability. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to learn about any of this stuff. I don't want to go. But then I was like, you know what? It'll get me away for the summer, so why not? So I brought it to my mom's attention and I said, can I please go to this? And she's like, what is it? And I was like, I don't know. I guess they're just starting this year. Like, can I please just go? And she goes, okay, well, it's free and you get to stay overnight for the whole week. So yes, you can go. Like, any reason to get rid of us. So I attended and I didn't know how impactful that would be to somebody who was in my situation. I learned about advocacy skills. I learned about transition based services and resources. And I learned that the things my mom was talking about in my IEP meetings, I was actually supposed to be in my own IEP meetings. I was learning everything I was trying really hard to get all this information into my head so I could take it back and be like, look it, this is what I need to do in order to succeed. And that's what that gave me. AZYLF gave me the tools that I needed to succeed. And so I went back home and I told my teacher, because I was going to graduate that year. And I said, I do not want to graduate this year. And he goes, what? Like, are you dropping out? And I said, no, I want another year of high school. I said, please give me another year of high school. And he's like, you're asking to go to high school again for another year when you don't need to. Yes, I want to go again. So it was approved. I was allowed to go to another year of high school since I missed so much school during the last couple of years of my high school career. And I told them, all right, but then I want to be in my IEP meetings and I want to go back to my IEP classes or AP classes and my honors classes as well. So they put me back. They put me back in my AP classes and my honors classes, because at that point I couldn't take AP any longer. And I succeeded. I got all A's again. And I spoke in my IEP meetings, but then my mom figured out that it wasn't going to be good for me to speak up, because I'm now learning that I have a voice and that I can use it, and I'm being very productive with my advocacy skills. So I was shipped off to Utah to stay at a rehab program in Utah, which was very devastating, but I graduated high school with a 3.8 GPA, and still to this day, I'm very proud of it. So when I got back from Utah, I learned that I needed to get out of this situation. I'm 18 at this point, almost 19, and I need to find a safe place to live. And mind you, I didn't know my dad from the age 12 on. I had not seen him since I was 12 years old. I didn't we were told lies about him, about who he was as a person, and we just didn't know who he was. So when I reached back out to my dad, I asked him to just please help me, because I was stuck in Utah, had no way of getting home, and I just begged him for help. I said, I need to get out of this. I know I'm being abused at home. Like I don't think I have any of the disabilities she's saying I have, but I need help. So my dad brought me home, and I started working with AZYLF once again, but as a peer mentor, which I didn't think was going to be a good idea, because at that time I was still like going through like recovering from the abuse and stuff, but it helped me learn and realize that like I had a voice that was very important, and that other youth are going through the same things that I went through, and I need to get them help. Fast forward to now, I have 3 beautiful children. I am no longer in the abusive situation I was once in. I have a baby on the way, a lovely husband, a beautiful home. I live in the Pinal County, I love Pinal County. I think it's beautiful out here. And I am thriving. And my whole goal in life after all of this was to talk and to speak on youth voice and how important it is to empower not even the youth that we encounter on a daily basis, but any youth who may feel like they do not have a voice, or that they cannot speak up, or they cannot talk, or they cannot do the things that they need to do. Because now I didn't think I was going to go to college. I had this whole college plan written out for myself. And I didn't think I was going to go to college. I didn't think I was going to get married. I didn't think I was going to be able to do anything that I'm able to do now. And it's all because AZYLF helped me realize that advocacy is one of the most important parts of youth transition and youth voice. That was a long story. It always is. But talking about my story and everything that happened during that time, and realizing like I came out of this to be a bigger and stronger person. What can we do now? As I tell my story and I think about all the things that we go through on a daily basis, I think about students that my son comes home with and says, oh, they don't know how to tell the teacher that they need to do this. But I tell him, like, you need to advocate for yourself. And the kid looks at me like I'm crazy, Mom. my son is 6, so like, of course the kids are looking at you like you're crazy because a 6-year-old doesn't talk about advocacy, son. So some of the things that we can do now is support, listen, and then help. So support them in any way possible. If a youth comes up to you and says, I need help doing this, so how do you support them in that? How do you listen to them? How do you sit down and hear every last word that's coming out of their mouth, no matter what it sounds like to you? And then how do you help them in that process? Barbara brought up that they might say they want to be an astronaut one day. And that might seem a little out of reach for some of us. That might seem like, how can they be an astronaut? They can't even do this, or this. But why do they want to be an astronaut, like Barbara said? What are the reasons behind that? And how can we encourage those reasons to be used in whatever way that they want to use them in? Because sometimes they just want to be an astronaut because the awesome costume. Like, I would love to be an astronaut if I could wear that every day. I don't know how comfortable it would be though. So maybe I'll take my words back on that one. But if that's the reason why don't we look at other job perspectives or job prospects that might have a cool, amazing costume that you're allowed to wear every day at work? These are things that we just don't sometimes think about when we're supporting youth in their endeavors. And another question I ask is, how can you support the youth in your life to make the decisions that may be harder for them to do alone? How do we do that? How do we support youth in your life to make decisions that may be harder for them to do alone?
I'm not going to be the first one again.
I say
How
ask
can you,
questions.
yeah, ask questions. So a lot of the times when we support youth in our lives to make decisions that may be harder for them to do alone, we can support them, listen, ask questions. We can also make out a plan that will help them get these decisions done a lot easier. I know that for me, having it written out and like in steps is a lot easier. But just to be there and say that you can be a support for them is even just as empowering as making this decision for them. I feel like a lot of the times we say, okay, well, you don't know how to make this decision, so let me do it for you. But that doesn't really help this youth in the long run. Listening to their needs and accepting that it may not be a need you see, but you can still support in whatever way is possible. One of the biggest things that I hear from youth when I'm working with them is that they want to do something that their parents don't believe is something that they'll be able to do, but they still want to do it. So how can we support them in learning more about what it is that they want to do? A lot of the times we give them resources for volunteer options and give them resources to be able to volunteer in different capacities that may have to do with what they want to do. A lot of what we hear is like being a vet or a veterinary assistant, or they want to be a wrestler. But how can we support these goals, but also help them see that this is what they're signing up for when they ask about these goals? So for a veterinary assistant or a vet, you can apply to see if you even like working with animals at a pound or animal shelter. Sometimes they will allow you to also visit different vet centers and look at different things that they do and their jobs. A lot of the times you don't know that they like have vets and veterinary assistance centers. They have to put down dogs, and like, I'm not kidding. They look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, do you know what you do at a vet? And they're like, yeah, we give shots. We make the puppies better, or the cats, or the whatever animals are better. And I said, yeah, I said, but do you know what else they do? So we go through a research process and we research exactly what it is that a vet does or a veterinary assistant does, and they are like, oh, I can't do that. I don't think I could be able to do that part of it. Or they say, oh yeah, I know that they do that, but that's okay, I'm okay with that. So it's just sometimes you have to be there to help support them and like bring out these resources for them to understand what the job includes and entails, and just support them in whatever way is possible. If they do not, now they see, oh, I can't do that, I don't think I can be able to, do the full jobs that are asked of a vet or a veterinary assistant. So what else can you do? Can you be a receptionist at a veterinary office, or can you work at a humane society or a rescue where you help puppies get the homes that they deserve? These are different things that we do to help support youth in different ways as well. We can also help them with accommodations, with advocacy, and with acknowledging that it may be a hard task, but it can be done. So some youth may say, I don't know if I can do that. And then we ask, how could somebody support you if that's something that you really want to do? Every other aspect of the job is something that you want to do, but this part is just really hard. How can we support you? And how can we find ways to like get resources to help support you in that way as well? And usually it's done. We don't want to knock down dreams. We just want to be really realistic about the dreams that they have as well. So I talked about how I am the youth engagement coordinator for Find Your Way project. And so a lot of stuff that I like to input and plug in is the Find Your Way program for youth who have and do not have disabilities. And these are Native youth that we talk to. One of the biggest projects that we're working on right now is the Youth to Youth Voices on Advocacy and Strength Building. And so we do a webinar every other Wednesday through the Sonoran Center, and we talk about how to help with the processes for youth and young adults on advocacy, on job training and understanding of transition. We talk about AZYLF and some of the Native-led AZYLFs that we have in different communities. We did 2 so far, one in GRIC, which is Gila River Indian Community, and then also did one on the Navajo Nation. And we're hoping to do another pretty soon in the TO community, and we're really excited about that because that's something that I have always wanted to do. Once I became about like 22 years old, my soul, or my grandma, that's what I call my grandma, she is a person who had lived with a disability all her life, but didn't know she had a disability, didn't understand that her not being able to see the moon was a disability, and she had low vision, couldn't see basically anything, which also held her back from driving and getting the correct jobs that she needed because she didn't know that affected her in that way or how to advocate for it. But once I got into advocacy a little bit more and started learning more about disability, I told her, I said, so you have a disability, right? And she goes, no, I don't. And I said, Grandma, how many surgeries have you had on your eyes? I said, your eyes are really, really bad and you can't see that well. And you tell us all the time how hard it is for you to see and that you just want to see like everyone else. You want to see what the moon looks like. You want to see what flowers look like in detail. And so she told me, she said, I want you to go to my community and tell them exactly what you told me about my eyes, but tell them how you told me and how I need to just advocate for myself and learn more about all that stuff. I want you to tell them about disability because I had to leave my home because of my disability. And she had to leave her home because of her disability because there was not as many resources as there are in the city. So we talked about this is one of the biggest reasons why this project means so much to me, and one of the reasons why I have fought so hard for our for Diversability Incorporated to really focus on Native youth is because our communities are so much different than the city communities. We don't have as many resources, and the resources that we do have are very limited. And I want to be able to tell the youth and the young adults and the parents and the grandmas and the grandpas and the that they have an ability to do the same things that we're doing, but do it in their own way, which is amazing. I hope for a lot of things. I'm a big dreamer and I'm a big pusher for our dreams to come true because I know that it can. And so what I'm hoping is not to only bring awareness, but the ability to empower the voice of those who may not think that they got what it takes. So I want to teach youth. I want youth teaching and empowering other youth. I want this all to be youth led. I want youth to be able to talk to people their own ages and do what I do and go around schools or go to webinars and be able to talk to other people about their stories and how it can empower other youth to speak up for themselves and demand that advocacy be taught in school settings or to have their voice heard. I want guidance from those in the community to harvest the youth and their needs. I want them to be able to say, I see you and I hear you and I want to help you. I want more opportunities for in-community and out-of-community resources. I think it's very important. So some ways to get involved is I don't believe Joshua is any longer with us. So at the Sonoran Youth said, but if you have any questions regarding any of the programs, I am available at diverseabilityincorporated.org. We also have a lot of youth and young adult programs, and young adult being under the age of 30. And one of them is Arizona Youth Leadership Forum, which I attended in 2014 when I was 17 years old. And that was the program that gave me all the ability to really acknowledge my strengths and understand advocacy and get me to where I am today. I really believe that I wouldn't be here without Arizona Youth Leadership Forum or the ability to share my story and really get the resources and information that I needed to succeed. So if you have questions about that as well, I love to be reached out through email and I will get back to you. I will be on maternity leave, but I will have admin go ahead and take over any other questions that might be asked if I am out on maternity leave. That might not happen for another month though. So if you guys have any questions, please reach out to me and I will get back to you, or I will redirect you to somebody else. So I had a question I thought I saw, but I am open to any other questions. And I saw that Cynthia asked, how can we help adults after high school and college to advocate for services? I honestly believe that AZYLF is a really great resource. I don't know if they're under the age of 30 or 29, 30. But if not, that is a really great service that I believe is amazing. And they have more than just AZYLF. Diverseabilityincorporated.org has a ton of resources on it as well.
Anya, there were a few questions that Gabe and I wanted to ask, and then I think we'd like to open up for others. So Gabe, I think you had a question about this whole topic that could be really helpful.
All right. My question for you, Anya, the question is, if it's covered during your presentation, but you may have hit on the points, and so it may not be necessary.
So Gabe was talking about, and he thought about this hard, is really what are some specifics that in the journey that you might want to give to others? So what are just some basic steps, if you're just starting out on this, for just how can people take initiative? Where would you start to advocate for yourself? Where might our youth begin?
I think just having that conversation with whoever their safe adult is. So asking and understanding what advocacy really is. I think that I know there might not be a lot of youth or young adult presence on the webinar right now, but even for the adults in their lives to really ask, do you know what advocacy is, or how can we teach you more about advocacy, or if you do want to know more about advocacy, deep research into that. Advocacy is asking and talking about the things that you need or you want in your life, and I think that's a really important step to start really understanding how to get to that point. After knowing what advocacy is, going to those safe adults or those people that you feel more comfortable with and really practicing those advocacy skills out on them. So one of the things that I did was I did not feel safe with my mom, but I did feel safe with my teacher. So I went to him and I told him that I wanted to have another year in high school. And so he made it possible for me to say that I wanted to do that in a safe way. And I wanted him to support me in whatever decisions I was making. So I did ask for his support. I think that's the best way to get it started. Really learning about that word advocacy, learning about the word self-determination, and then having a practice round with somebody to really practice on those skills of advocacy, even if they're real life skills. Practice those with somebody so that you feel safe enough to be able to say, I need this, or I want this, and this is what I need, and this is how I want you to support me.
Wonderful. And Gabe, I've got one for you. And that's how about what steps have you taken to help advocate for yourself? You do it a lot for others, but kind of things help you begin to say, hey, I can self-advocate for me too. What are some of your ideas?
Definitely. I have been having to do this a lot lately, actually. Advocacy has been a daily thing for me. Being pregnant, it's hard. I'm tired and I don't feel great, and I have to go to the hospital quite often. I get something called an iron transfusion done. And more recently, the iron infusions have been making me feel a little bit worse than before I got them done. So what I do in a hospital setting is ask all the questions that I have. I write down all the questions that I have about the different feelings that I have in my own body. So I feel weak and dizzy and stuff. So I talk about that. And then I go to the nurse or the doctor or whoever it is that is helping me at the moment. And I say, I have all these questions and I would love for some answers and some explanation. I have a really hard time understanding what people say if they don't take it slowly and really explain it in detail. Do you have time to do this? And if you do not, I would like to have somebody explain it to me in detail. And I learned that that's really hard to do in a medical setting for myself, but I'm able to do it more easily because I have all the advocacy skills. My husband is a huge supporter of mine, and he is like one of the safest people that, like, the people that I feel safest with. So sometimes I'll look at him and I'm like, and he's like, you know how to advocate for yourself? And so, we talk about different things. I need help with, getting my socks on, even sometimes, like when I have to put socks on my feet, I'm like, babe, you need to help me. My feet are swollen. My belly is too big. Can you help me put my socks on? That's simple advocacy, but it is still part of advocacy. With my job, I have told them that I don't think I'm going to take maternity leave or a long maternity leave. But now with all the health problems arising, I'm like, okay, I think I need maternity leave. And we need to start planning for it before the baby's here so that we can get everything done. So how can I get maternity leave, and how can you help support me in receiving the maternity leave that I need? And so that's a huge part of advocacy for me as well in the moment.
Thank you. That was great. I want to turn a few questions to Gabe, and Gabe has one for you too. But Gabe, one of the things is that there are people in your life that really helped you early on become a self-advocate and understood that. So, I think about like IEP time and what your mom did along the way to say, Gabe, you can, take this on, I'll help you. But what are some things that she did to say, okay, you're going to do this for yourself, but there's a parachute, I'll help you.
Right. So me and my mom had a good connection. As I said about your dad, had a good connection. When you go back home, that's my mom support me, and that makes me like comfortable, and she makes me give me support, like everything I want. It makes me feel good. I make her feel good, and those make a good connection.
Great. And what did she have you do at school that was kind of new that the school hadn't seen that much before about
Right.
what you did there?
Yeah. So since I was in high school, I do my own thing, like doing like homework, like taking classes, helping like a school trainer. Those are good ways to get into like connection and interact with and help each other.
That's good. So she said, oh, she didn't say Gabe should be sheltered from that. In fact, he could be a leader. You've always wanted that, and you're going to be a position of your goal was to be a leader. And she would tell the school, as with you're going to run your IEP and you're going to find things that you're going to be a leader. And that's so important for families to help you do. So that was really important. And then okay, why don't you share that question for Anya, and that may be the last one for us, and there's some time for others to ask. You talked for your parents and elders. That's in your list to ask Anya. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a good question for you, Anya. How did your family support you to have the voice and speak it early on? And how advice do you have for others?
That's a good question, Gabe. So growing up, I didn't have a lot of like elder support or adult support in any decisions that I really wanted until I got to be about 18 years old. And that's when I had a stable like adult or elder that I looked up to. At 17, I met Melly Santora, and she was the one who really like encouraged me to use my voice and use the abilities that I had to be able to do the things that I needed to do to become a really good advocate. And then also my dad. I didn't know him very well when I first moved in with him at 18, but I got to know him, and he supported me and still supports me to this day. He taught me how to really just speak what it is that I needed to speak without having any shame to it. I as coming from a Native community, it's really hard to really decipher between, you know, talking to elders in a disrespectful way and talking to elders in a really respectful way. And you're taught from a very young age. I remember from being like 5 and on that you need to be respectful of adults and what they have to say, and elders of what they have to say, because they're important and they lead a lot of us into the right direction and right path. So that was another reason why it was really hard for me to advocate at a young age. But I think now, knowing that there's a respectful way and a way to advocate for yourself to adults and have that adult support, and really just acknowledge that I really I love my dad's input. When my dad tells me when I want to do something or I'm trying to advocate or have him help me, I really love his input. I love hearing what he has to say, but I love the fact that he listens to me and he supports me in anything that I need or I need help with. So that definitely is something that I think is really impactful for youth to understand, is that there's a respectful way of advocating for yourself. I mean, that's what advocacy is. You should be respectful at all times when you're advocating for yourself. You don't just go kick down the door and say, oh, it's my time to shine and you need to listen to me, or if you don't, I'm the center of the circle. But I do believe that there is a respectful way to advocate for yourself, and I think a really good adult or elder does understand that and help you, guide you into advocating in a respectful way as well.
Thank you, because that really can be tricky, and to live by respect, trust, and partnership, whether it's with our families, our elders, and the system partners themselves. Well, speaking for Gabe and myself, we are thrilled with what you presented us and your responses to questions. We do have time for a few questions, and we hope that you will reach out and ask them. We're scheduled to go for another 7 minutes, so that allows us time to do so. Richard, your hand's up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Anya, for sharing, and Gabe too for sharing your story. I'm curious, Anya, about the AZYLF. If you could talk a little bit about how that works. I'm not super familiar with the program. It seems like there are certain conferences throughout the year in certain places. If you can talk to that conference or the forum a little bit, and how students get connected with that.
Definitely. So yes, AZYLF is now one of the biggest initiatives that we do at Diversability Incorporated, and it's statewide. So AZYLF was a 5-day conference that would incorporate all this information of advocacy skills, self-determination skills, and different other resources and transition help. And we do something called a person-centered plan at AZYLF. Things have been changing a little bit, and it's for the better. I mean, we're doing a lot of great things, but what we're doing now is holding them in different communities and asking schools to help us in gathering youth who may be great for this opportunity so that they're able to join us. So if you go to our website at diversabilityincorporated.org and go to our services and then the initiatives and AZYLF, that is where you will see a bunch of our AZYLF information. And you will see that we just went to Kingman more recently and did an AZYLF with them at the high school. What we're hoping to do is do main cities and different cities of Arizona to get all this information out to students. And one way that you can get more information on this is going to our website, and there's a contact us page where you can leave your information to get more information on when the next AZYLF will be, in what area, and how we can support the students that want to get involved in AZYLF. If you have any questions regarding there's multiple students that you want to have for an AZYLF. We are also doing it at school centers. So if you have like a whole classroom of students that might benefit from AZYLF, that would be something that we'd be willing to put on. It is a free initiative. Youth don't have to pay anything, families don't have to pay anything. It's a lot of information, and it's really amazing that we're able to have students. And another thing I forgot to mention is it's for students starting in high school. So after their first year of high school, so freshmen until they're 29 years old. So any of those ages are able to attend our AZYLFs, and I don't think we have one planned coming up anytime soon. So if you do, we have one in TO that we're going to do. But if you have any questions or want one done in your area, just reach out to us. You can reach out to me, and I can have our interim director included on the email as well, to talk a little bit more about what it is that we do and how we can get started in your community or with the students that you have already.
Thank you.
We do have time for another question.
I was just gonna, this is Benita McCurry. I was just gonna add that I've been more than happy to share this resource as well. I think there are great opportunities for high school students or students getting into high school, learn about self-advocacy. As many times as I visited high school, so you ask questions, you ask them, do you have any questions? And they just have like this blank look on their faces. So I think any type of training or learn skills that they would be able to pick up, I think that would be awesome.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah. And the coolest part of all of our initiatives at Diversability Incorporated is a lot of what we do is youth and young adult led. So I'm the youth, their peer-based service professional, but we have another peer-based service professional as well. And it's all we're all the same ages, like more recently, to them. So they're not getting information from like adults or, people who they might feel. I got told I was old recently though, from one of the youth at the YLFs. And I was like, what? I'm not old. But then it hit me. I am reaching almost 30. So, so definitely something that, is really awesome about our initiatives. All the youth that come to present and help and do the presentations are 18 to 29. So really awesome that we also don't have that many adults in on this. We're running it. Us young people are running it.
Well, on behalf of all of us, we would like to thank you so much again. I know that we were very happy that you were able to present with us, Anya, and thank you for your baby for just waiting a little bit more so that you could present, and Gabe for your insights as well, and for the excellent questions. I think it had been mentioned that this was the last in a series, and we can get you the links to the others around What Is My Life. And we are contemplating with what might be a good follow-up, and it is really around family navigation, but it wouldn't just be tied to employment. We've heard a lot that families can find some difficulties navigating the systems. Yeah, I know that's true. But what would really tie it to what are the services that would be most helpful, and opening that up to self-advocates, because there's some things that may ring true to you that some families would say, I'm not sure. So to have a healthy dialogue about that. So we've been having conversations. We hope we can make that happen. So stay tuned. And you see the different pieces in there coming up with, different areas thanking you. If you didn't get a question answered, who you can direct it to. And also there's some links that there'll be, and there's a survey that will pop up in there. And mainly, thank you for joining us. It's really made a difference and will make a difference in the lives of youth with disabilities. And with that, we're going to close the meeting and thank you again. It's an honor.